This film was made possible by RAMA and the Institute of Demolition Engineers.
It's a very exciting time. You're about to become president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. What's the first thing you've got planned to put your stamp on the Institute?
I've been thinking about this quite recently, and one of the things that I do want to push is particularly in the southeast, we've been lacking in regional meetings to give the guys opportunities to get these CPDs. The CPDs, as you know, is one of the things that you must maintain to keep your membership. And I think we need to give the guys more opportunities to do that, rather than just say you must come to the seminars, because there are other ways of doing it, and we've got to be mindful of giving them the opportunities, because a lot of the guys are busy, they can't all make these seminars. So consequently, if we can do something like that, I think that's one of the things that I'm really going to try and push for. I mean, I've always been a believer that we need to keep the professional image. That's, to me, is one of the other things that we need to maintain and improve on, shall I say. And getting affiliated to the Engineering Council has been a good step, but I think we just need to carry on and maintain that to make sure that we keep the professionalism that we've established.
How long have you actually been in the demolition industry, and perhaps more importantly, how long have you been a member of the IDE?
I've been in the demolition industry most probably 25 years, maybe it's a bit more than that now. I keep telling everybody it's 25 years. I got into it, as most people do, by accident. I worked for the CGB as it was then, and I was just a project manager doing rebuilds on some of the running power stations. And then to get an upgrade to get a bit few more money, I actually got a job in their demolition department. And then from then, I ended up taking over the group that managed all the demolition of all the conventional power stations. And so consequently, I've knocked down about 30 conventional power stations. And then I moved from that and worked for a couple of contractors, did a little bit of consultancy, and then about 18 months ago, I moved again back into it's sort of the scenario of becoming gamekeeper and then poacher and then moving back again. I went back and I've joined Magnox, so I'm now involved in the decommissioning of the nuclear power stations. Regarding the IDE, yeah, it's something I joined when I was with the CGB, most probably thinking about it about over 20 years ago now. It was a lot more in its infancy then, and it wasn't really the same sort of professionalism as it is now, but I mean, when I did it, you just wrote a paper, put that into the institute, and then they assessed that, and you became a member. And obviously it's a lot more onerous now, but that gives us the credibility, shall I say.
You've worked for some of the biggest names in the demolition industry, Erith and Keltbray among them, and yet you're now working for a client like Magnox. How do you balance the two?
The main difference, I think, is that when you work for a contractor, things happen instantly, shall I say. You may be going to one site one day and then one of the guys will ring you up and say, you've got to go somewhere else, and it just happens. And if you want something done, it happens instantly. With the likes of Magnox and National Power I used to work for, because they're big organisations, things do not happen like that at all. There's a process for everything, and that process can be very arduous. That is the main difference with it, really, I think. I mean, it's to manage a project, whichever side you're on, I don't believe there's a great deal of difference, really. It's dealing with the issues, with the management of the personnel and the actual technical issues. Right, you're defending a different side contractually, but outside of that, it's still the same issues, I think.
There's a slightly strange position you've got now, though, where you're going to be president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers, and over this Magnox framework, you're going to be putting demolition contractors through the ringer for the next decade or so. It's a strange one to balance, isn't it? Well,
no. As far as I'm concerned, it's not, because I've always done it, as I say, because I worked for National Power CGB as it was, and I worked over that period of time numerous contractors and was in that process. I don't see it as a problem. You know, you've always got to be seen to be a step back from it, and you've got to be seen to be totally clean and impartial, and that's the way I deal with it.
Your predecessor, John Woodward, is obviously a very outgoing, gregarious person. How do you follow an act like that?
I think everybody's different. I've got a different approach to John. John's approach, as you say, is out there. I'm a little bit more laid back. I've been said to say that I'm nearly falling off a chair, but but by the same token, I still tend to do things, but I do it in my way. And because I've been involved in the industry, I'm pretty well known in the industry now. I mean, as you know, it's not a big industry, so everybody knows everybody really. And John will still be there because he'll be past president on the council, and it will most probably be just a smooth transition.
The Institute recently took a very bold decision to expel some of its members for failing to keep up their CPD points. What have you got planned to address that?
I think it's the right thing to do. People need to actually make sure that they achieve the CPD, and then they can carry on and maintain the professionalism. But by the same token, as I said previously, I think we need to give them more opportunities to actually achieve the core CPD points as an organisation. And that's something, as I said again earlier on, that I want to try and do. Make a few more avenues for people to gain them so that it's easier, for not that easy, but easier for them to do it.
What would be your advice to entrant members that have just joined the IDE?
Oh, it's interesting because two of my sons are members now. One's an entrant member, he's taken the exam, the other one's been in a few more years. But I encouraged him, and I would encourage any of them, that once they've carried out the criteria and been in the industry long enough, they should try and become part of it, because it will enhance them and their career, and it will enhance the company they're working for as well. It makes it much better for the company. The company's can say, well, we've got people that are professional demolition engineers, and I think it's something that we need to push and make sure. We're taking some student members. It's not really, it's more like if they're doing a university degree and there's an element of demolition. But there are quite capable guys coming into the industry now from outside, and these are the ones that we need to encourage and develop.
So tell me more about the shared support examination route.
We've got, shall I say, senior members or affiliates or enrolled members that may have learning difficulties and that sort of thing, because, as you know, a lot of the guys, particularly the more senior guys, have come up through the tools, shall I say, worked their way through. And we looked at this and we thought there needs to be a bit of a niche there for somebody like that to have the opportunity to join the Institute, because they're confident in what they do, they're competent in what they do. And so consequently we've developed this process now when we assist them to achieve membership. 3 guys have gone through it as a test case to see how it goes, and these guys are sort of, shall I say, senior guys that are, most of them have got their own companies, they've been in the industry, they know the industry inside out, but they have trouble putting things on paper and doing an exam. So the idea is that we will then assist them with the exam.
Both of your predecessors were very public in their desire to attract overseas members. Is that something you're keen to continue, and how are you planning to address that?
Well, I went to the American Federation last year, well this year rather, in March, to just sort of see what it was like. The bottom line with America is really majority of those aren't that interested. We've had a couple of inquiries, but by the same token, I think what we can do is develop Europe. I mean, we've got quite a number of Europeans that have tried to apply or have applied to us now, and so we are trying to develop them and bring them into the Institute. I mean, we've linked in with the EDA a little bit with that, and the idea is to try and push it a bit more so that we can get them or give them the opportunity. The language is one of the problems that we've talked about, because obviously, and the legislation, which is slightly different. So if we give them our exam paper, their legislation may vary slightly to ours. So from that point of view, there is issues that we need to talk about. But now that we're talking about this shared support, that may be another way that we can assist with them to come into it. It's something that, it's an ongoing process, it's something we're looking at, and we've got about, I think it's about 4 or 5 actually, of the Italians from Despe, who are a big company in Italy, They've applied, and we're trying to sort something out to give them the opportunity to take the exam or to become full members. So that's the plan with it. I want to develop it in this country as well as over there. You know, it's something we need to maintain the numbers.
Now, the age profile of IDE membership seems to have changed over the last few years. You've got a lot more younger, more dynamic people on board. What do you do to encourage that going forward?
We do need to aim at the younger ones because they're the future of the industry. But I don't think there's any ideal age. I think it's if you've got the experience and you've got the will, I think any age. As you rightly say, we have got a lot of younger ones coming in now, which is great. But by the same token, if we've got somebody that's in their 40s or their 50s, you shouldn't say no to them. If they want to come in, fine. And I think that should be it.
Do you think demolition contractors are now seeing the benefit of having an IDE member on their payroll?
What I've been led to believe, and I think is the case now, is that more and more, as you know, when the bigger tenders go out, they have a pre-qual, as they call it, where they assess their competence, their health and safety, and other issues before they actually develop a tender list. And more of these are asking for competence to be demonstrated by becoming members or having members of the institute, and they're actually asking now for their CPD records and things like that. So it is something that needs to be addressed, as it were.
And is that something that the contractors are now following through? You know, they're sort of freeing up their guys to go to meetings and seminars and that kind of thing?
Very much so. We've noticed that with the membership applications in the last year that we've been getting, there's 2 or 3 companies that only had the odd one, and we've had quite an influx of numbers from them actually applying to become members, which again is good for us, really.
That's good.
But again, sorry, one of the problems then is that you get too many that work for the same company, and it is difficult. I know Keltbray's got about 10 or 12, and Erith's got a similar number. So both of them, you know, when you look at the management side of it, if you've got a seminar, well, I can't let them all go to that because I've got jobs to run outside, and I've got to earn money, which is what it's about. Which is why, coming back to what I said earlier on, we need to make other opportunities for people to gain their CPD.
You're now working for Magnox. Magnox is at the very start of a 10-year framework to take down a bunch of, or decommission, deplant nuclear power stations. How are you going to find the time to be IDE president?
I'll ask that in 2 parts. First of all, Magnox have been actually doing a lot of decommissioning for quite a while. Magnox got 10 power stations. Only one of those still generates. The 9 that have been or different stages of decommissioning, a couple of them, the one at Berkeley is virtually decommissioned totally. Bradwell and Tresfinnid both go into what Magnox call care and maintenance in 2 years' time, or less than 2 years' time. So that it is been a long way down the road. They've done it a bit hit and miss in the past, but now we've got that a bit more organised. So the second part of your question, Magnox have been very good. When I joined Magnox, they knew I was part of the IDE, and I said, I made the point of saying to them, look, I'm quite happy to come across and work for you, but I need to have the understanding that I will have the time to carry out my duties with the IDE, and they're more than happy for me to do that. I mean, they see it as good for them as well, because it sort of enhances their profile that the president of the IDE works for Magnox, which I suppose it does, really.
You've had a head office relocation and a series of back-to-back, very successful, very well-attended seminars. The IDE seems to be on a bit of a roll at the moment. How do you maintain that?
We just continue building. I mean, you're absolutely right. We've moved it down the road the right way. The seminars have really taken off now, which again, I think a lot of it's linked to the CPD. Again, I know I keep coming back to that, but I think it is linked to that. But the seminar, we've talked about trying to increase the size of the seminars, and we may do that. We tried road shows a few years ago. That didn't really take off, but we may try that again. I don't know. I think the 2 that we have is sufficient, because I think if we put more than that in, we will overcrowd it, and so you'll lose. You won't get the take up on the numbers. So I think we need to sit that where it is, but increase the standard of what we're giving them. That's the important thing. What we must make sure that everything we give them is a good standard, and they get something out of it. we stopped doing feedback forms, and I think that's something we need to get back going from seminars.
Now, as IDE president, you've effectively now got the ability to help steer the demolition industry. Looking ahead, what would you like to achieve personally in the next 2 years, and probably more importantly, what would you like to see the demolition industry achieving?
I would like to. I keep coming back on the same thing actually about this CPD. That's one of the things. Maintain and increase the professionalism of the institute. Keep the autonomy that we've got. We need the link with the NFDC. We need that link with them. But I think we still need to be standalone apart from them, because it benefits them as well as us. Because we can then be independent if we need to be, and some of our members are in positions that they need to be independent. So if they're linked away from it, the NFDC, that's fine. But we do need to have a link to the NFDC, and if need be, they are very supportive of us, which is good. And we, as you most probably know, whoever the president is, they get a place on our council. So we keep that link with that, and the intention is to maintain that, really.
If I handed you a magic wand now and said, okay, you can change one thing about the demolition industry, what would it be?
One thing I would actually like to take away this impression still that it's a rough and ready crash bang wallop industry, because that it is still. I mean, it's come a long way. I mean, since I've been working for Magnox, I've been doing a little roadshow with all the power stations and showing them a bit about the demolition industry and trying to show to them how it's come a long way from the bloke standing on a wall and the ball and chain to moving the guy away and making it a lot safer. And I think that is the thing that I would try and maintain, not just with the IDE, but as an industry as a whole. You know, it is a bit of a. I think it's going away from it, but it's still there. And it's also, it's a bit of demolition, don't worry about it. But it's not, it's an art in itself.
If you could sum up in one sentence why a demolition professional should become a member of the IDE, what would it be?
To show their competence in demolition engineering. That's what it's about to me. If they're a member, they're competent, they've demonstrated that, and then they can go to the outside world and say, I'm a competent demolition engineer.